Okay, so I've got this Chicago electric generator. It's a portable generator, 800 watts, 900 watt max. Came from Harbor Freight. Bought it with a coupon. Cost me 90 bucks. It is about 5 years old, I think now. Yeah, about 5 years old. And I'm having some difficulty getting it to crank up. Everybody knows what ethanol fuel does to these small engines, so that's my guess as to what's going on with it. So we're gonna see about taking this thing apart, cleaning the carburetor out a little bit, and seeing if we can get it to fire up. Okay, step one. We're gonna disconnect the spark plug wire. Pull it off the plug over here on this side. Alright, got that loose. And step two, we're gonna turn off the fuel. It's got a little valve right here, on and off for the fuel flow. Actually, the lever broke off of it, so I'm having to use a pair of pliers here. Well, that is high quality stuff right there. Pipe metal. I may not be turning the fuel off. Oh, I'm getting it. I'll probably get it turned off and never be able to get it turned back on. Yeah, it's not working so well. Okay, looks like I got it. I'll probably never get it turned back on. Alright. 2 Phillips screws holding the cover on for the air filter. Little tab down on this end. I grab it by and pull it off. See in there, the dirt daubers had tried to start building a nest in there. Knock that out with a screwdriver. I'll blow that off with air hose in a little bit. Alright, so here's the air filter. Air comes in on this side, flows through the filter over to the carbureted side. And this little unit does not have a throttle control or anything. It is has a choke here, on-off button, and choke it here, move it over to run there, and that's about it. This is a reset button in case you trip the generator part. It's a little breaker there. Alright, so I had a couple bolts right here holding this housing on. 2 bolts here holding it to the carburetor, and 1 bolt right here holding it to the unit itself. Once I take that off, I'll be able to see the carburetor. Okay, these bolts, the bolt and the 2 nuts are 10mm. Use a 10mm socket and an extension to get to those. Alright, I got those loose. This little plate right here comes off. You can take the whole housing off here. Now there's of course some electrical connections here to the breaker and to the on-off switch. So I'm going to need to get those loose so I can move this plastic panel out of the way. Should be able to reach up in behind there with a pair of needle nose pliers and pop those off. off switch. Black was on the top, brown on the bottom. Two blue wires here connected to the panel over here. That one and that one. I'm actually not going to disconnect that. I'm going to sit this around out of the way. There we go. Now, let's see the carburetor here. The engine part's on this end, and then this part here is the generator. Okay, the two nuts that held on the air filter housing control panel part, that plastic piece, actually hold the carburetor on these two bolts right here. Is actually loose on there right now, but I can't take it off till I disconnect the linkage down here for the throttle control. Disconnect the fuel line right here. So go ahead and get that fuel line disconnected. Just get a pair of pliers and squeeze the compression clamp and move it up the hose a little bit to get it out of the way. Let's see if it's loose on the hose. Take your pliers and you can work this fuel line just a little bit. Don't be too rough with it. You don't want to tear it. But you can break it loose that way, and then you can push it up off of there. Now a little bit of gas is going to come out of here, obviously, so don't point it at yourself. Put that right there. That wasn't much fuel. Alright. Okay, there's no way to get that off of there without taking these 4 bolts out, holding this plate to the intake part of the engine there. So, those are also 10mm. We have to hold the carburetor up out of the way. Broken loose. Okay. Naturally, the more things you take loose, the more chance you have of messing up a gasket or something, but there's just no way around this, having to do it. Really didn't want to, but it doesn't appear to be stuck, so I'm not too worried about the gasket. Alright. So basically the same bolts as the first bolt we took out. Now that plate's loose, I can turn this at an angle and it comes right off. Alright. So, there's the inside of the engine. That is the crankshaft you're seeing right there. Okay. Here's the plate that bolts on the side of the engine, and this is basically the intake, or the head. It's got these 2 reed valves right here. Right, now that I got that off, I can just pull this out. I'm going to set this aside. I don't really need to do anything with that. I believe our problem lies in this carburetor right here. So I'm going to loosen this screw right here and let the fuel drain out of the bowl. Alright. And now the next step is I'm going to rinse this thing off, get some of this trash and debris off the outside of it before I start opening it up. I don't want to get any of that inside. I don't want to add to my problems. Alright, I've rinsed it off, sprayed a little degreaser on it, rinsed it off under the water hose. Next step is going to be to get this bowl off of here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. 10mm socket on the bottom there, and loosen that up. Could be a little gas still left in it, so be careful, don't splash it on yourself. There's a little rubber gasket right there. Came off with the nut, the bolt of me. Alright, so there's quite a bit of debris in the bottom of this. So that tells me that I have picked up some trash in the carburetor from the fuel tank, or picked up some trash somehow in the tank. It could be, also it could be some, some buildup too. A little bit of ethanol buildup probably. Alright, so got the bowl off. That's going to expose the float. Take the float off by pulling this little pin out. We may have to push it from one side or the other to get it out. But there's the pin. And you can I see what the problem is with this already. The float is stuck in this bad boy. I'm sorry, not the float, the needle is stuck. So it was not letting any fuel in. I can't even pull it out by lifting up on the float. It is totally stuck. Oh, finally got it. Yeah, that needle was stuck. It built up on the side of the needle. Ethanol. It's like varnish on the side of the needle right there. Down each ridge, there's a little bit of varnish on there. It's causing that needle to stick inside here. That's why there wasn't very much gas in the bowl. I didn't think very much drained out, but that will definitely explain it. And alright, I think that that's probably going to be my main problem, is that all this buildup in here. So it's going to take a little carburetor cleaner, spraying that off, blow it out with the hose, and see what we got. Okay, now for the messy part. Cleaning it. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little razor knife and I'm just going to scrape along these ridges on this thing here to clean this off the side of this needle. It's not just buildup, it's also corrosion. These are aluminum parts. You're talking about ethanol fuel, just sucks moisture out of the air, so you get a lot of water in the fuel. When you have aluminum parts and water, well, it's going to corrode eventually. So getting this corrosion off the side. Careful not to scrape the metal. You do want to get that corrosion off so it doesn't hang up inside that little hole. Now the hole where the needle goes is actually brass, so it's in really good shape. It's not corroded up. It's relatively clean up in there. Alright, I recommend at a minimum safety glasses when you're using carburetor cleaner. A full face shield is way better. But if you don't have a full face shield, at least wear some safety glasses. Stuff will shoot back in your face real quick, and it burns. I'm going to spray a little bit in this bowl here to start cutting some of that debris loose there. Trying to keep it from running out the hole in the bottom. Get all that wet inside there. Make it easier to get out of there in a minute. Alright. I got the worst of it soaking there. Now I'm going to take the carburetor cleaner and I'm going to spray all of these little holes in the carburetor, including this one. This is where the fuel comes in from the tank. The needle sits in here, and as the fuel in the bowl is drained out, the needle opens and allows more fuel to drain in from the tank. It's purely a gravity fed system. There's no kind of fuel pump on this. It just drains straight down out of the tank into the carburetor bowl. Alright, so I'm going to do that now. Make sure kind of face it away from me so I didn't spray in my face. Alright, that came out this hole real easy. Spray it down in there now. And it's coming out just fine. Every time I spray it, it's coming out somewhere else, so that's a good sign. But it's not clogged up in there. Alright, there's not a lot to this. Fuel's picked up in here, comes up and comes out this jet and that jet back over there. There's one more hole here, not sure where it goes, but I'll spray that. Oh, it comes out right here. Okay, well, that's got all of these sprayed. So now let me spray a little more in here. Yeah, I'm going to have to scrape that. It's not coming up, so I'm going to just use a screwdriver. Kind of in there and scrape some of that buildup and corrosion. All right. Spray one more time in there where the needle goes, since that seemed to be the root of the problem. And we'll put this back together. Grab the float and the needle. The needle fits on the float on this little tab right here, facing that way. And just slide that spring on there like that. It's a retaining clip, not really a spring. And you'll slide this on over there with the needle in the hole. See now how easy that needle moves up and down? It was really stuck before. There'll be basically nothing I could have done about that without taking the carburetor apart. I'm going to slide the pin back in that holds the float at its pivot point. And it pivots just fine, and the needle comes up and down like it's supposed to. That's good. And then we'll put the bowl back on. There's no set way this bowl goes on, but it was on like this with the drain valve on the side with the fuel line. So I'm going to put it back on the same way. Some fuel bowls have little notches in them, so they will only go on one way. This one is not that way, so put the bolt with the rubber washer back in the bottom of it. 10mm socket. And tighten that back up. It's very hard to hold on to. Be careful, don't bend anything. I'm going to take the bag off my camera. A little plastic bag over it in case I sprayed carburetor cleaner on it. I figured that probably wouldn't have been a good idea. Alright, so I've wiped this off, dried up the surfaces. When you go to put this on, this is at an angle, and this part will be level once you put it on there. So make sure you get that up on there right. The writing on it is actually going to be upside down. It says XJR 5 right there, which will be upside down when you're looking at it from the side here. Go ahead and slide your carburetor on there. I just knocked the spring off the throttle arm here. You don't have to worry about hooking up the spring yet, but you want to go ahead and put this on, sliding it through that little plastic bushing right there. That was the last thing we did when we took it off. It's the first thing you're going to do when you put it back on. Alright, so we got all that done. Now we're going to get our 4 bolts and get those started back in there now. I'm going to go ahead and remind you right now, don't over tighten this stuff. It's aluminum, and you can strip it out without even thinking about it. So be careful, don't over tighten it, make sure it's nice and snug, but not too tight. Again, you're going to have to slide the carburetor back out on these bolts so you can get these 4 bolts in place there. Use your socket with your extension on it, get those snugged up. Snug all 4 of them before you start tightening them. Make sure you tighten it up even. The top left one, that's the most awkward of the 4 bolts there. Alright, I've got them all pretty much hand tight. Play around with the carburetor and you can get it in the right spot so you can tighten these. Go ahead and tighten this one first. It's the hardest one to get to. Alright. They're all snug. Alright, so my next step is going to be to go ahead and put that spring on right here. It just hooks through each hole where the end of that little rod goes, so just use a pair of needle nose pliers, and it's hard to work around with a camera in your face. There, that's right, that one came through from the bottom when this one hooks on the top. There we go. That's it. Alright, so that's hooked up. Now you see when we pull that, it pulls the throttle. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and hook up the fuel line here. Slide that down on there. Squeeze the compression clamp, move it into place, let it go. Done. Alright. Next step is going to be to put the next washer on, or next gasket on. Wipe it down a little bit. And the one that goes on the back, in case you took them both off, the one that went on the back had a round hole in it, and this one's got a 6-sided hole on it. Go ahead and put that on there. Alright, that's that. The next step is going to be to put the panel back on. Adjust the camera here. as you're putting this back on, you're going to have to go ahead and hook up your wires. 2 blue wires up here on the top. Then the black and the brown wire to the kill switch over here. So I got that plugged on. Now it's time to put the nuts and the bolts back on this side here. One bolt goes down here on the left hand side, screws into the frame down there. Alright, got that snug. Alright, then we got the plate that goes on there. Put the 2 nuts on. Get those hand tight. Alright. Snug them up. Remember, don't over tighten this stuff. Alright, there we go. That's back together. Now I'm going to put on the cover for the air cleaner. Air cleaner's fine. It's not even remotely dirty. So alright, this hooks in and this end. 2 little tabs, 2 little holes. And push that around. And it'll snap in place. And you put your 2 screws back in. Alright, that's back together now, so I'm less than thrilled about having to cut the gas back on. Seeing how what happened when I tried to turn it off. I think I can do it with yeah, there we go. Whoops, sorry. Alright, gas is back on. Now, I'm going to see if this thing will crank up. Okay, let's see if this will crank. I've got the ignition switch to the on position. I'm going to move the choke over to choke. See what happens. I've given it a minute or so for the bowl to fill up from gravity. So hopefully that has happened, and we'll see what happens. So, fortunately, after the 3rd pull, I remembered I should hook up the spark plug. Okay. I turned it a little bit so I could stand up to pull on this cord. a little bit too much work sitting down. Still got it on choke. Let's see what we can get. Alright, so there you have it. It runs, which is something it didn't do an hour ago. Appreciate y'all watching this video. I hope it was informative for you, and maybe it'll help you keep your Chicago electric generator running, or it may be useful in some other two-stroke engine that you have. Have a great day, and thank you for watching.